Hey guys, it's Vedazo, back at another Card Fight Vanguard deck profile. So if you guys enjoy, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and donate to the Patreon. And let's get one started. Today, we have our Keter Sanctuary Bastion deck. The grade 3 galore build, the king of the grade 3s, the leader of Keter Sanctuary, the Sanctuary in the Sky, etc, etc. Enough hyping them up. In all honesty, I like Bastion a lot more now. Like, I don't know why. Set 2 feel like Bastion was just sidestepped, and I understand why, because Bastion was kind of ruling in set 1, and then he got sidestepped for Bruce, and then he kind of regained his power, not in a bad way to where Bastion became overpowered again, or at least in my opinion, didn't become overpowered, but it felt like it got more support in set 3, and I'm really appreciative of that, and the deck feels a lot more consistent, a lot more comfortable, and then it has the gamble card, which I question why I run it and why I don't run it. So let's go ahead and get it started. First up, we have our starter in Knight of Heavenly Bow's base. 6k base, 5k shield, grade 0 with boost. Auto, when rode upon, if you want second, draw a card. Nothing too special about him. Standard starter. I like him because he has the wings. He has like the little dagger that has wings on it. All around, I like his design. It just fits the deck really well, especially because most of them are meant to be Cloud Knights. So all around, he's the starter. Also because he's a part of the Bastion ride line. Trigger-wise, we have our 1 over trigger and Light Dragon Deity of Honors Amartinoa. I'm going to say it right one day. 5k base, 50k shield, grade 0 with boost. Over trigger, you may only have 1 over trigger in your deck. When revealed as a trigger unit, remove that card, draw a card, choose one of your units, and it gets 1 million for the turn. If revealed during your draft check, activates additional effect, which is until end of turn, you can perform draft checks for the battles of your rear guard attacks. So that works out really well with Bastion if you draft check it, because Bastion's ability does, for the restand to go off, it does not matter whether it's his draft check or rear guard's draft check. As long as you draft check grade 3, doesn't matter who does it, you get the effect off, which is really nice. So, and especially because this deck is mainly main grade 3s. I mean, this deck is just straight up grade 3s with the PG triggers and 1 grade 1 and 1 grade 2 that go in the ride deck mixed into it. So all around, it's a way to get multiple drive checks, and this deck would probably most likely be 6 drives. So all around, I like this over trigger. It feels, as much as it feels like the most underwhelming one in terms of effects, because in my opinion it's not really flashy, it has the potential to make stuff flashy, but not flashy on its own. It definitely does the most, and probably the most consistent for the deck it's meant to go for. So 1 copy of this one. And then our remaining triggers, we run 3 copies of Knight of Heavenly Pierce Gallus, our draw trigger, 4 copies of Bard of Heavenly Song Alpacc as our front, 15k shield, 4k base. Front trigger, continuous guard circle. If your opponent's Vanguard to grade 3 gets plus 5k shield, so it's a 20k shield. Adding for the extra defensive, especially because, like I said earlier, and I've said this before in all of my other Bastion deck profiles, is either I go all grade 3s or I go no grade 3s. That is how it works. So I don't run that 1 grade 1. That is when it's discarded or placed on rear. You stand it back or a rear guard circle. I know it would be useful, and I have used it before, and it is very annoying to deal with. But once more, it's not a grade 3, and it decreases my chance of Bastion going off. That's how I see it, but the deck still works. Either way, we have this 20k guard, and it really helps adding the shield when you have a lot of grade 3s kind of holding up the hand, and you kind of need the draw trigger, so you get hand cards back. If you want to replace this with a crit, you can, but if you're going my way, I think the draw is a better way to go. And then we have our crit in 4 copies of Blade Feather Dragon, 4k base, 15k shield as well. Critical trigger, auto rare at the end of the battle that it boosted, shove it to soul, choose one of your units, and it gets plus 2 for the turn. Okay, you don't run it for that 2k buddy. That 2k makes literally no difference whatsoever. Like, no turn that you use this, it will make a difference, unless you're somehow grade stuck at grade 1, but quite literally, if you can call this, you can just use this as discard fodder for Rooks, so I'm not so sure how you'd be grade stuck. I mean, they would have to make a card that prevents you from riding from ride deck, which I would be interested to see, but that feels more like a very bullshit control deck alone, which is that ability, but that would be interesting, something for Bushiroad to screw with. Either way, Blade Feather, I like it. It has the ability just to get you the extra soul, which sometimes this deck, on rare occasions, it has the soul problem, and it's a 2k boost. It's also a 15k shield. It's a crit with the skill, basically. That's why it's here. It has use outside of just being in hand, so 4 copies. Also, he does look cool, though. And then we have our heal and healer of Heavenly Staff Arshes, 15k shield, 5k base. Standard heal trigger. Nothing too special about her. We did get news recently that we are getting like a new type of thing for heals. Like, I think they're called Original Worlds, maybe? World Originals. Either way, they don't seem to have anything special about them. They just happen to have like names of current heals. So, or at least to my knowledge, that's what they are. So hopefully they give them effects. So there's reasons to run them, because otherwise it's just Bushy trying to charge us more. That is quite literally what that is. Just them trying to charge us more for decently looking cards. Because in my opinion, the one I've seen so far, I like its original one more than I like its newer one. So take that as you will. 4 copies of Arshes though. On to our grade 1s, and the only grade 1 you actually run in the main deck, 4 copies of Aegismare Dragon. Okay, we don't need to get into this why it's here, but just in case people don't understand, grade 1 boost, 0 shield, 6k base, continuous sentinel, we have to 4 sentinels in the deck. Auto, when this unit's placed on guard circle, choose one of your units, and it cannot be hit on battle. If your hand has 2 or more cards, choose a card from your hand and discard it. Standard PG, nothing too special about it. You play it down, and if this and one other card were in your hand when you use this, you don't have to discard anything. So really easy if you're on the back foot and you kind of just need to throw down as much defensive as possible, which is maybe happen a lot depending on how aggressive you are with this deck. Like, if you're playing a deck that murders rear guards a lot, this is probably going to be one of the easier times you'll pull this off. But either way, I like this PG. It's really nice. I don't know why he looks like a zebra to me. If he didn't look like a zebra to me, I would be more loving towards him. I don't know why. 4 copies, though. And then we have our one other grade 1, and the grade 1 that goes in the ride deck and you don't put in the main deck. Knight of Heavenly Sword 4, 8k base, 5k shield, grade 1 with boost. Auto, when it's read upon by a Knight of Heavenly Spear Rooks, reveal 2 grade 3s from your hand, reveal the top card of your deck, call it to rear guard if it's a unit card, and if it's not, it goes to drop. Okay, this deck runs 7 orders. And all of them are grade 3s, by the way. Anyways, so the chance of you not seeing a unit is very low. I mean, you don't want to see a trigger. For some reason, like, when this deck first came out, a lot of people would always use Rook skill, and for some reason they would see Arshes, and I'm one of those people. I don't know why, I just started calling it the Rook curse, where you would just top deck into Arshes for no apparent reason. And then Blade Feather came in, and now for some reason I do it with Blade Feather. I don't understand why anymore, and now I do it with Bastion as well. So I have like 3 iconic cards I normally see from it. Bastion, this, and this. I don't understand why it's like that. I don't like seeing 2 triggers, especially when one of them I want to keep in hand, but it's just how it is, especially with Bastion. Either way, it's an okay ability because it can get you an extra rush out. I mean, technically speaking, like, grade 3 is useless because it probably doesn't do anything at the moment if you're not on grade 3, and it probably requires other grade 3s, which basically just gives them a free snipe fodder or something that will be useful to you later. And if it's not, then it's probably a trigger, and you don't want to lose that. And if it's not, it's probably a PG, which is, in all honesty, probably the best thing to call. Yeah, that's to the point where we're at the point where PGs are probably the best thing just to top deck off of. You may lose one, but it's a booster. And then the other skills, act rear guard once per turn, counterblast 1, choose one of your grade 3 vanguards, it gets +5 for the turn. You would never pull that off. There's nothing in this deck that can send stuff back to deck, and even if there was, it would go back to ride deck. There's nothing in this deck that can call out of soul. I mean, there is a Keter card that can call out of soul, I'm pretty sure, but you don't run it here. There is no reason to use that ability whatsoever. The Vanguard is the least important attack, so it's fine if they guard it, it's fine if they take it, doesn't really matter. In my experience, they've been taking more of the Vanguard attacks than they've been taking the rear guard attacks. So 1 of 4, and that goes in the ride deck, none in the main deck. And then we have our only grade 2, which also goes in the ride deck. Knight of Heavenly Spear Rooks, 10k base, 5k shield, grade 2 with intercept. Auto, when read upon by Apex Ruler Bastion, reveal 3 grade 3s from your hand, draw a card, continues rear guard during your turn. If you have 3 or more grade 3 units, it gets plus 5k power and boost. Okay, just like Fort, that ability is never going to go off whatsoever because it involves being on rear, and we're not running the card thing called Stuff from Soul. And the other ability, I don't know why, but I feel like Rooks is so underwhelming. Like, Fort has the potential to give you at least an attacker or a booster or setup for any remote reason. This just gives you a draw. And while like a draw is appreciated, you have to have 3 grade 3s to begin with to do this, and if you don't have the 3 grade 3s, because maybe your hand's all triggers, or just a bunch of defensive cards like PGs, kind of goes down the drain. So it's an okay card. This one's a lot easier to pull off than this one. And now we're on to our grade 3s, the main parts of this deck. We run 2 copies of our new grade 3 boy, who is a straight up wild card and probably a suicide bomber, Unsurpassed Heavenly Impact Ragreal. 13k base, grade 3 twin jet persona ride. I like his shield design. I don't know why I don't like his weapon and the knight himself. I'm met about weapon, hell no. Person himself, middle line, shield, adore with my living soul. So anyways, auto rear, when this unit attacks a vanguard, counterblast 2 and rest any number of your other rear guards until end of battle. This unit performs a drive check and gets plus 5k power, and at the end of the battle, if 3 or less units were rest for this cost, you discard 3 cards from your hand, and if 1 or less units were rest for this cost, you discard 2 cards from your hand. You choose 2 more cards from your hand and discard them. So, pretty much, you kind of just toss out 5. Yeah, if you rested 1 or less, you just toss out 5, which sucks. But, you still get your drive checks. So basically, here's what you do with this. You go swing with your rear guards and then your vanguard and then this thing, and then you use its skill, Counterblast 2, rest absolutely nothing. It's an 18k swing on its own. With Bastion skill, it's a 20k. Maybe you have a booster on board, which makes it a 35. Maybe you're in a Persona Ride, which makes it 45. At the very least, this is a 20k, and you after using its skill, and granted, you got to discard 5 after this, but you're at least getting 4 drives out of this turn. So all around really good. I mean, obviously, if you see a Keter over-triggered the turn, don't use this unless you really think that 5k is going to make a grand difference. But all around, I like this card. I definitely didn't like it before because it felt too much like a card that would screw you over. Now, after a few test plays with it, I see its use. It definitely feels a lot more comfortable than I thought it would feel like. I definitely thought it would be a card that I would just discard for PG fodder or nothing else. So 2 copies. You don't want to see it too often, but you don't not want to see it either. So 2. Next up, we have 2 copies of Knight of Broadaxe Rafluke. We are in set 3, and I'm still running this because every now and again, and it's more often than not that I will run into a soul problem. It's really weird. I will run into a soul problem mid-game, and somehow it just fixes itself, and then I don't have a soul problem for the rest of the game. Like, I don't understand how, but the 2 Raflukes have something to do with it. So I don't know. Anyways, Rafluke, 13k base, grade 3 to enjoy Persona Ride, act, rear guard, put it to soul, choose one of your grade 3 rear guards, gets +10 for the turn. Okay, you're just making a grade 3 bigger. You use Bastion skill on that grade 3, it got +20 that turn, it swings twice. It's automatically a really good card. Like, this thing is helpful, get you soul, get you big numbers, makes it harder for them to guard it, 2 copies. 3 copies of the other thing that fixes the soul charging problem and counter charging problem, because if the game gets late enough, eventually you run into a counterblast problem. 3 copies of Knight of War Damage Fosado, 13k base, grade 3 to enjoy Persona Ride, continues rear. This unit cannot be chosen by opponent's card effects, so the only way you can murder this by effects is by mass targeting. So things like Imprison from Seraph's No or like Lemon, I think it is. One of those 2 or maybe both of them, because they don't specifically target one unit, they target multiple. You can just take them both and then this thing gets targeted with it. Or stuff like Blade Master, because it doesn't target anything, it just retires everything. So things like that would be able to kill this, but stuff like Orpheus's Outfit Dread, where at the end of the battle that it was boosted, you murder a rear guard, and then you can kill an opponent's rear guard. Yeah, so that counts as targeting, which means this can't be targeted. And then auto rear guard, when its attack hits, you get a counter charge and soul charge. So, you know, the on-hit pressure, because that counter charge and soul charge comes really helpful. It gets you a lot of resources. It allows you to make multiple plays really easily, makes your plays a lot easier to do. It basically just makes everything harder for your opponent. So, you know, more things that they need to guard. They have Big Boy that they kind of want to guard. They have Vanguard, who you never want to take because you're afraid of them sacking crits. And then you have this thing because if you let it go through, they're getting resources, which allows them to do it again next turn. So they eventually just have to lose hand cards enough to where they have to start taking things. So 3 copies of Fosado because he's really helpful, adds the on-hit pressure, adds the benefits to the deck if he does hit, and makes it hard for him to kill. Next up, we have Soaring Dragon, Prideful Dragon. A 13k base, grade 3 with Twin Drive and Persona Ride. As everything else in this deck, that's a grade 3. Auto rear, when this unit attacks, if you have 4 or more grade 3 rear guards, including himself, Counterblast 1, Soul Blast 1, draw a card. If you Persona Road this turn, you can have it gain 5k in a crit until end of turn instead of drawing a card. So, you know, on swing, you have the ability to get a draw card, just to kind of refill your hand, because for this to go off in the first place, you need this and 3 other rear guards that are all grade 3s. Or if you did get the Persona Ride out, you can get this to have more power and more crit. So along with that Persona Ride, it's a 15k swinger with double crit that can stack. So if you restand this with Bastion's effect, it can get more power and critical off it. All around, nice grade 3. Unfortunately, the Counterblast 1 and Soul Blast 1 kind of come back to bite you because Alden also cost a Counterblast and a Soul Blast. So it's a little tricky situation there, but I still like this card, so 3 of. Plus, he looks really cool. Next up, we have 3 copies of Heavenly Bow of Identifying Guidance, Refuerzos, 13k base, grade 3 to enjoy Persona Ride. I used to hate this because this ability continues rear guard if you Persona Ride this turn against boost. Okay, so he has boost, and his other ability is auto back or rear guard circle once per turn. When your other unit stands by its a card effect, stand it. So a way to just kind of get an extra booster out of your attacks. Except my problem with it was it required you to Persona Ride. And while so this thing, at least it had an alternate effect where you didn't have to Persona Ride for its full effect to go off. I mean, you could just still get a draw card. You don't have to get the 5k in a crit. While this one, to be remotely useful, you actually had to Persona Ride. Thankfully, now we kind of have a card that does the boost for us. I mean, we had Dark Strain, but like, Dark Strain was kind of 50-50, especially because you kept Soul Blasting from him, and then this thing came along, so it was even harder to keep the Soul up. So 3 copies of Frieza, because now he's actually more useful. 3 copies of our last normal our last grade 3 that isn't Bastion, I'm pretty sure. Grand Heavenly Sword Alden, 13k base, grade 3 200 Persona Ride. Auto, when it's placed on rear, counterblast 2, soul blast 1, choose a card from your hand, call it to rear. If you call it a grade 3, you draw 2. So, a way to just get a draw 2 out of calling a grade 3. Now, obviously, if you don't have a grade 3 in hand, don't use this, because then you just be paying counterblast 2 and soul blasting 1 just to call a card when you could just do it normally anyways, unless the card specifies it cannot be normal called. But I don't think there's a card in Keter that does that. So, counterblast 2 and soul blast 1, kind of hefty when you need to balance it out with Prideful and this thing over here. Yeah, those, at some point they do actually start competing with each other for counterblast, especially one of the orders. So you kind of have to learn how to balance with that, but the draw 2 definitely makes up for it. And then auto rear, when this unit attacks, if you have 3 or more grade 3 units, it gets plus 5k. So, unlike this one where it gets the extra crit, this gets the 5k regardless, and it's one less unit that you have to have. So all around, it's really nice. 18k swing with Bastion, so 20k swing, and you can keep abusing this because it's not a once per turn, it gets it for the turn. So kind of just like Prideful Dragon over here, keep swinging with it, it gets stronger and stronger. So all around, nice grade 3, 3 of. Next up we have Apex Ruler Bastion, 3 copies in the main deck, 1 copy in the ride deck, our last grade 3 in our main grade 3, 13k base, grade 3 200 Persona Ride, continues Vanguard during your turn, all your grade 3s get plus 2. So, permanent plus 2. Now while that does, on normal grade 3 turns, that does not technically matter, because the second your opponent gets to grade 3, your boat's going to be sitting at a 13k base the whole time, and that extra 2k will not matter in the long run. But while they're at grade 2, that's an extra 5k drop for all of your grade 3s, because not all of them are 15k bases, so they all need to drop 10ks. And if you're playing premium and you're going against Gize, who happens to have a 30k base, well, you just have 1 grade 3 in the front row, 1 grade 3 in the back row that can boost it. You got a 30k swing. It can hit over Gize really easily. So, all around, that ability is actually really good. Despite the fact it's an ability I constantly forget sometimes when I don't need it. And then Auto Van, once per turn at the end of the battle that your drive check revealed at grade 3, discard a card from your hand, choose whatever rear guard, stand it, and it gets plus 10 for the turn. So, a way to get an extra rear guard attack, and a way to get that rear guard plus 10 more. Now, if you want to run that grade 1 that has the ability, when discarded or when placed on rear from your hand, stand a backward rear guard, you can, just to, increase the amount of boosters you can have, but most likely you probably have Refuerzos in the back row where you would stand for Bastion skill, so yeah, not really important. I mean, often Prideful Dragon is a card I use for sack fodder, as in discarding, because in my opinion Alden's far more useful than him, but he's still here's in case you need him. So this is normally ride deck fodder slash just any discard fodder whatsoever, and maybe murder fodder if you know their deck can kill stuff. And then normally these are the things I'm swinging with between Fosado and Alden, and it's always a 50-50 who I give the restand to. If I need resources, I'm going to Fosado. If I don't need a resource, I'm just going to go Alden and swing at face. So all around, Bastion's really good because he also does it for free. I mean, not for free, he forces you to discard a hand card, but this deck can get hand cards really easily. Nothing in this deck really discards hand cards, and you have plenty of discard fodder for all those grade 3s. So, yeah. So 3 copies in the main deck, 1 copy in the right deck. You do want those Persona Rides. And then on to our last cards, which are all orders. 2 copies of Hopeful Testudo, grade 3 Blitz order. If you have 3 or more units, choose one of your units, it gets plus 15 for the battle. So it's a 15k shield. This does nothing against the decks that like murder the rear guards or prevent you from allowing to have rear guards, such as Prison or Eugene or things like that. So this doesn't come in handy against those matchups, but otherwise this thing comes in really helpful because it's basically another trigger, so 2 copies. Then we have 2 copies of Form Up O Chosen Knights, grade 3, normal order, play it by counterblasting 1 and soul blasting 1, perform all the effects below according to the number of grade 3 units, 2 or more, choose one of your units, it gets plus 5 for the turn. So remember it says units, so the Vanguard is one of them, so you just need 1 more grade 3. So if you have 2 or more, something gets plus 5, 3 or more, you get to draw a card, and 4 or more, your Vanguard gets to drive. So, all around, it's an okay card. The 5k is a meh, especially if you use this earlier on when the opponent's probably going to take most of your attacks anyways. The draw card, okay, we got to draw out of it. We're basically replacing the card, and the Vanguard gets a drive. I cannot tell you the very few times I use this, mainly because the Counterblast 1 and the Soul Blast 1, this is essentially Alden, because even though Alden's a Counterblast 2, which is very hefty, and which is why this deck is somewhat hard with the Counterblast, because you actually have to debate of who you're using. Like, some games I will go without using anyone, or like besides Alden, and then this thing, and then other games I'll just kind of go 50-50 with it. But Formo Chosen Knights, every time I use it, when I get that Vanguard extra drive, I actually needed that Vanguard extra drive because I would always drive check 2 triggers followed by a grade 3. So really nice. That Form of Chosen Knights is really nice, and also like its art. It's really cool. It looks, I don't know why, but the way they made Bastion looks really amazing. I'm not so sure about the other guys. Like, yeah, one of them's Alden, yeah, one of them's Refuerzos, but I think I like how they did Bastion the most. So 2 copies because this order is really nice. And we have our last order and our last card in the deck, which also happens to be a set order, which means, yay, finally someone that isn't Lyrical or Brank got a set order, but also, I run 3 different types of orders: Blitz, Normal, and Set. Did I need to say that? No. Did I want to say that? Yes. Anyways, 3 copies of Protector's Pride, one of my favorite orders. After a set order is played, put it to your order zone, play this card by discarding 1, continuous order zone, all of your grade 3 rearguards get boost. Okay, simple. Nothing too special about it. Oh wait, yes it is. It gives everyone boost. Like, straight up, this is really good. This becomes a boost without persona writing, and now that everyone has boost, this can be pulled off on a first grade 3 turn, and it's a lot easier to kill people on first grade 3 turn now. Alden is, I mean, it's not like it was hard before, but still, well, I'm just not going to say it's easy either, but, so now we have this as a booster. These 2, okay, so these 3 are all things that you question about being boosters because they all have on-swing effects, so that's something, but you can use this as a booster despite the fact he kind of just stays there for a short amount of time, and this also has an on-swing effect. Okay, like one of these is an actual booster and the other one is, the other ones are kind of 50-50, but still, all around, really nice. You get multi-attacks out of it, you get more boosters, especially you can abuse Refuerzos more, so I really like this card. 3 of, and yet for some reason I've only seen it 1 game. I don't understand why. I don't. If they give us an order search, I'm shoving it in. So that was the deck. I hope you guys enjoyed. Honestly, this deck is really fun. Like, you get a lot of grade 3s out, even if it's just a bunch of grade 3s and you might have a guarding problem in the later game. You can definitely get out a lot of numbers and make sure that you're not going down without a fight to the death. This will be a fight to the death. It's just a question of how much your opponent will be able to walk away with. So all around, it's a very fun deck. I cannot wait to see what Bastion's Evolved form does because, oh my god, it looks so cool, and if it does what I think it's going to do or what I hope it's going to do, it's going to be pretty cool. So don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, join to the Patreon, join the Discord, follow the Twitch, and I'll see you all in the next one. Don't forget to stand up your vanguards.